Records aren't cheap, especially these days. Are they a good long-term investment? Will you ever get your money back if you need to? We will discuss on this episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local but you are in the U.S., you can shop online at ntxvinyl.com and would love it if you'd subscribe here to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at NTX Vinyl is the handle. Let's talk about record collections as a long-term investment. This is it's an interesting topic as a longtime collector myself, someone who has obviously spent a lot of money on records, probably not unlike you. First and foremost, if you're buying them strictly as an investment, I think that's interesting for me personally, and I think hopefully a lot of people, they're buying records for the music, to actually experience the music, to own the music, and get some enjoyment out of it first and foremost. But, when you're spending money on anything, it's not uncommon to think, what if I need that money back? Doesn't matter if you're sinking it into a vintage car, or you're sinking it into a collection of sports cards, or sneakers for that matter. Anything that's kind of collectible can kind of, go up in value over time, right? As far as records are concerned, are they a good long-term investment? It really depends. No, it's not an easy answer. It's not the best answer, but the reality is, if you're spending a lot of records, spending a lot of money on records in 2023, and you're planning or hoping or you're thinking that, at any point in time you can get all of that money back plus some, because obviously a good investment is one that actually makes money, doesn't just break even, right? That's hard, to be honest with you. You're spending, if you're buying records, easily $20 a record. Maybe you're buying pre-owned stuff that's cheaper, $5, $10, that's fine. You accumulate a couple hundred or a couple thousand records, and then you need to go sell it because you need money for something. Maybe something changed in your life. Maybe you're just not into it anymore. You're not listening to them enough. So the question is, have they gone up in value, and are you going to be able to recoup that cost and then make money because they've increased based on the demand in the market? The reality is who's going to do the work? Like, let's say you've got 1,000 records and you've collected them over the last few years. You've spent a lot of money on them. You spent $10, $20, $30, $50 a record on more collectible things, and you're ready to cash out, right? So there's a couple ways to do that. Well, you can take them to your local record store, and you can see what they will offer you. Chances are that's going to be a lot less than what you paid for them. So that's not a good investment, right? A good investment is not one where you spend money and then you go to cash out and you get less money. Like, that's a bad investment strategy, right? So the reality is, if you want to actually cash in, you want to get your money back and you want to profit, definition of a good investment, then you have to do a lot of work. That's not typically how good investments work. Typically, when you invest money in something up front, then you let that investment sit, and over time, at the very end, maybe it's months, maybe it's years in most cases, you want to then profit. At the very end of that story, typically a good investment is like, okay, now you got to do a whole bunch of work to get that money back. Like, think of it, if you're buying stocks, something like that, you put your money in front, you let it sit. At the very end, you cash out, you get your money back. You didn't invest much other than your money there. You took some risk, obviously, and that's there's something to be said for that. But the reality is, with records, you're buying a bunch up front, you're spending money, you're collecting them, you're enjoying them over time, hopefully, and now you're ready to get out. And unless you're really ready to sell them one by one or in small groups, even, you're not going to make money. Like, that's just the reality of it. There's very few scenarios where I've heard of a personal collector, not a store, a personal collector who's willing to buy a large collection, let's say thousands of records, or let's just say 1,000 records for, retail. I've never seen a person go, oh yeah, I bought this collection 1,000 and I paid $30 each for them. Like, who does that? Like, nobody does that. Like, your wife would kill you in most scenarios, and your bank account would kill you. Like, that's just not reality. If you're gonna want to sell 1,000 records all at once, you're gonna maybe not take pennies on the dollar, but you're gonna be selling them for a couple bucks a record. There's no way around that. There's very, very few, if any, personal collectors out there who are going to buy in bulk, because your collection that you have invested your time and money in is curated to your listening habits. It's curated based on what you wanted to buy, what you wanted to hear. And so if I'm a personal collector and I'm looking at a collection of 1,000 records because I want to buy them to add them to my personal collection, well, what are the chances that it aligns perfectly with my likes and dislikes? That's very, very, that would be very, very odd to meet another collector who's got the exact 1,000 records that I'd like to spend 20, 30, $40 a piece on. I'd rather just take my time and cherry pick my own and buy, if I'm going to pay retail, right? So the reality is that's where a store comes in. That's where a reseller comes in, whatever you want to call them. Because a reseller, obviously, or a store, they don't necessarily have to buy stuff that's that specific, because again, they're reselling to the general public, which general public has lots of varied tastes across genres and eras and all those different types of music, right? So are records a good long-term investment? Not really. Not really. Not unless you're willing to put in the work. And believe me, if you want to sell 1,000 records one by one as an individual seller, that's going to take time. It is going to take further investment of not only time, but also materials and setup. And it's going to take, months, years to sell that many records to get full market value. You want to list them all on eBay. You want to list them on Discogs. You want to put them on Facebook Marketplace. You want to sell them in Facebook vinyl groups. There's tons of different places for an individual to sell records one by one at retail value, right? What the market demands. But if you want to sell them all in bulk, you want to cash out on your investment all at once, there's no way you're getting retail value, because no shop ever is going to pay you retail. That makes no sense from a business perspective. They have to sell at retail. So they have to buy at a fraction of retail. And shops are, for the most part, the only outlet for someone who wants to sell records in bulk. So the answer is pretty simple. No, records are not a good long-term investment in regards to pushing a button and getting out, you know. That can be said for any collectibles. I don't care what you're collecting. Unless it's a big purchase, like, again, I mentioned like a vintage car or like a motorcycle or something. People collect very, very high-end expensive things too, versus records, which are, you got to add them all together to come up with a big value. But as far as records are concerned, and the ability for someone to really profit easily at the end when they're ready to get out, I just don't see it. I talk to people all the time who've collected records, for many, many years. Now they got to downsize. They lost their job. They need the money. All these types of different scenarios, or like I said, or they're just ready to get out. I talk to people all the time who are like, I just don't need him anymore because I can stream all the music from my phone, and they're not really in it for the audio fidelity or for the experience of sitting down and paying attention to it. They are just in it for the music, and they're fine with the music being on their phone. So now they're ready to get out, and they're getting a couple bucks a piece for a great collection. That's just the reality of it. There's very few personal collectors who are going to drop tens of thousands of dollars on another person's collection just to sit and listen to it. They'll just buy it one by one on their own, specific to their taste of what they want. And that's how most people collect. So the big bulk purchase, that you're hoping to get at the end for your entire collection, it's going to be a fraction of what you spent. I almost guarantee you there's just no way around it, because again, shops aren't going to pay you retail. That's not how businesses work. They wouldn't exist. My record shop wouldn't exist if every pre-owned record I bought it for, 20 bucks and I turned around and sold it for 20 bucks. That's the zero profit. That's a loss based on my time of what I'm investing. So it's an interesting topic. I talk to people all the time when I buy pre-owned collections. I talk to people regularly who are investing money in this now. So just think about it as think about why you're collecting records. I think that's the biggest thing. Make sure it's for the right reasons. Make sure you're doing it because you actually enjoy it and love it. And just know that in the end, if you decide you want out of this thing, like, you will be doing great if you can get your money back, much less profit. And that's not the definition of a good investment. Would love your comments, would love your feedback. As always, my name is G.I. Sanders, and this has been another episode of Talking About.